and welcome to The Hash for Tuesday, June 8th. It's great to be back with you, my fellow Hash co-hosts. I'm joined today by Naomi Brockwell, Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, and Nate DiCamillo. We are here to talk about the latest in crypto news. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about a market tumble. Prices looking down today. Bitcoin trading in the 31,000 range. Ethereum also down a bit. Trading not so hot. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the markets, looking at what may or may not be driving some of those price moves. We're going to start off with Ben Powers, who's going to take us to the world of ransomware. Ben, what do you got?
Exactly. One of my favorite places to play in, obviously. But Joseph Blunt, the CEO of Colonial Pipeline, which was a victim of a ransomware attack earlier this year, is testifying before Congress, I believe right now, actually, over his company's decision to pay about a $5 million ransomware fee in Bitcoin. And some interesting developments have been happening around this the last day. You know, this sort of attack not only spurred a conversation around cybersecurity vulnerabilities in the US, but also conversations about the role of crypto in ransomware. And some news that broke yesterday is that US authorities have been able to track down and sort of confiscate about $2.3 million worth of crypto that was used in to pay off kind of said ransomware attack. But I think this story is really interesting, but I want to blow this out larger. Guys, what do we think about these sort of percolating conversations that like crypto is enabling ransomware and it could be on the table for regulation along those lines? Naomi, I want to toss this one to you to start off.
You know what I'm going to say, Ben. I mean, all of these people use mobile phones. Well, mobile phones are enabling ransomware and enabling hackers, and they probably all have shoes as well. Well, let's outlaw shoes. Let's ban it. Like the message at the end of the day is that this stuff is neutral. Well, I mean, it's a reductum ad absurdum so that people can understand how ridiculous this principle is. You know, technology is neutral. It can be used for good and bad, and to place the blame on the technology because bad people decide to use it is ridiculous. You know, someone stabs someone with a spoon. It doesn't mean that the spoon is bad. It means that the person is bad and should be treated as such. So I think that it's a misguided conversation. I also think that there are ulterior motives at play there. You know, the government's always looking for any kind of reason to cast crypto in a bad light. They have been doing this for a long time. Yesterday, we spoke about how you know, there are a lot of politicians who are very scared about Bitcoin jeopardizing the supremacy of the US dollar. And so I think that, you know, they're going to be looking for all kinds of reasons to slam it and smear it. And, you know, I hope that they don't succeed in this, but I definitely think that that's the reasoning behind it. But Zach, I'll throw this to you.
I am 100% with Naomi on this one. So Bitcoin is radically neutral, right? It is a neutral payment rails that lives outside of the remit of government control, and that means that good people and bad people can use it, and that is a selling point of what Bitcoin can do. So the fact that I think that people are sort of spooked by this idea that ransomware is necessarily a crypto thing, sort of maybe, I don't know, maybe speaks to the sort of like the current nature of the market, right? We've seen this before. We'll see this again. This is not necessarily a good or bad thing for Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is necessarily neutral. It doesn't care. It's a tool that's being used in this instance to bad ends, maybe to ends that ultimately made these criminals actually be held to account. Actually, I think I want to talk about that later and ask you, Ben, about if you know anything about the blockchain analytics here. If this was cash in a bag, I don't know if necessarily the clues would have been as easy as they may have been in this case. But I don't know. I just think this is really interesting. If this is what's spooking the markets, I don't know. But I think it's interesting that this is becoming something that is becoming a conversation, a talking point. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see if we get a nuanced conversation around this, or if, as Naomi alluded, we get sort of this absurd reactionary conversation. It might be that. So we'll have to hang on tight.
Jen, in this economy, Zach, come on.
Yeah, Jen, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Zach and Naomi. I think 2 weeks ago we spoke about the U.S. Saying that there needs to be more regulation around data security. And I wonder if the conversation needs to be more focused there when it comes to these ransomware attacks than on cryptocurrency. Like, it just feels like there's a huge disconnect there. But Ben, I want to throw it back to you. I know we only have 2 minutes left, and I want to hear your response to what Zach was just asking.
No, I mean, like InfoSec Twitter has been one of my favorite Twitters to follow for a while, but it's really popped up and been strong over recent weeks with, kind of memes of CFOs and CEOs saying, what? Like, we're stuck with ransomware, but I gave 2.5% of our overall budget to cybersecurity. And they're just like, that's not enough, like in terms of resources. No, I think this is definitely something that we're going to see continue to happen. I think it really does feel like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is getting like thrown into this conversation in a haphazard way. I think that these things would happen regardless or not, whether crypto is involved. Like hackers go where money is, period. That is how that works. And a lot of times, and we even saw, DarkSide, the hackers sort of group behind this ransomware attack say like, we are not geopolitical. We are just in it for the money. So I really think that there is going to be maybe some regulatory whiplash in this regard, but I do think that it's going to have to be a more nuanced conversation than what it currently is. But Zach, what you got?
Ben, I have a question for you. So is there any reporting right now suggesting that one of the blockchain analytics firms or something like that had any role to play here in retrieving this money? What's the state of play on that?
Yeah, it's a really weird one. So we had a affidavit from a U.S. law enforcement official that said, they basically tracked like the transfers of Bitcoin wallet to wallet, and it seems they got access to one of these wallets, and it's really unclear which, if any, blockchain analytics firm is involved. But there's also leaving a lot of questions out there about, for example, how the FBI got these keys to access this wallet. There is a lot of gray area there, and that is a huge question. I believe our colleague Nicholas Day, he reported that, Coinbase and Binance US were not involved with this, so they were not kind of the exchanges involved here. He's asked some other ones, but has yet to hear back. And there's just a lot of sort of FUD out there because the FBI is being super vague with the details of how it was actually able to access this fund. Zach, kicking it back to you.
My next question, my tinfoil hat. Is the FBI running a Bitcoin mixer? Is there anything? That is
the question.
Almost certainly. It is pure.
So to be very, very clear, it is pure speculation at this point, but without any other corroborating details. It's important to, people are theorizing about what the various mechanisms were by which the FBI was able to not only identify this money, but also access it. And crazier things have happened. I don't know. That's kind of my. We can put on tinfoil hat territory. I'm a privacy reporter. I live in that space. Yeah,
you got to get to the bottom of that. That'd be really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's change gears. Let's do some other stuff. Let's stay in DC, kinda. Let's talk about Tim Wu. Tim Wu, tech advisor to the White House, is actually a secret crypto whale. He owns over $1 million in Bitcoin and something like $100,000 in Phil, which is the native token of the Filecoin distributed file storage system. Guys, we got a crypto whale in the White House. What's our take on this? What do we make of this? I'm gonna throw it to you, Nate. What's your take on what's happening with Tim Wu here?
I think it's interesting. I think one point to make is that he's now recused from working on any crypto policy in the White House because of his Bitcoin holdings. So that's interesting.
Wait. Can we just riff on skin in the game versus conflict of interest? I thought skin in the game was a good thing. He knows the technology. He can't weigh in on these matters anymore.
He should at least be able to advise in some manner.
Okay, I guess that crypto adage doesn't apply to White House policy decisions. Anyway,
I think we just had a year of 4 years of conflicts of interest. So let's hold off on further ones.
Oh, well, I'll jump in there. No, go ahead, Nate. Finish.
No, I was going to say, and he owns more Bitcoin than gold. So he is a Bitcoin bug more than a gold bug.
I just don't understand this conflict of interest idea with Bitcoin. It seems very, cherry picking of the government there. Is he also recused from talking about, the US dollar or any policy that involves any money? Because he probably has some of that too. Or what about gold? Or what about, any stocks? Or what, there's so many areas where he's probably using things he probably has a house. Can he not talk about any sort of housing policy? It just seems very strange that they're cherry picking Bitcoin and saying you cannot participate because you have this specific asset.
I think it makes sense in a lot of ways, though, to be fair. This is just sort of a natural process. This is what's laid out when you go into the job, right? This is not something that's new or novel. And I do think, he's not advising on certain things. He is advising on others. And so to be able to delineate, particularly when, we see the market move in such volatile ways based on kind of the cherry picking of like signals out there in the world, I think that it does make a lot of sense. That being said, I thought it was interesting that, previously he had called Bitcoin a bubble. He had talked about it as like a really skeptical manner. And yet now we're seeing that he's invested in it. And Nate, to your point, like to the extent more than he's holding in gold bars, which is just sort of a funny parallel when we're talking about like Bitcoin as digital gold. So, it shows that he's been in the market for a while. I believe it was maybe 43 overall Bitcoin was the number cited. But to see somebody who watches technology as closely as him and see sort of this development over the last few years from like pure skepticism and sort of naysaying to like, okay, I'm holding, I think is somewhat relevant.
I wonder what created that transition. Sorry, go ahead, Jen. I was just throwing that question out there.
I was also going to throw a question. Who's the next skeptic who, if they turned and accepted Bitcoin and revealed that they own a lot of Bitcoin, we would all be surprised about? Is there anyone left?
Paul Krugman, Peter Schiff.
It was like top 10
Rubini, Nouriel Rubini. These would be like, can we get a panel with those three on it? That would be incredibly difficult to listen to.
Bernie Sanders.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna move us into the next story. So the World Economic Forum has released a white paper that's meant to give regulators the understanding they need when it comes to DeFi. So they're not actually recommending any specific policy actions. The document's just supposed to draw attention to areas where regulators need to catch up. So I thought this is a really good starting point, but I wanted to ask you guys, like, do you think this is enough given how fast the DeFi sector is moving? Like, is it possible for regulators and lawmakers to keep up?
I would hope so. I think DeFi represents a really interesting set of questions, right? Like, it's to a large extent, regulations, be it from FATF or other sort of global anti-money laundering bodies, to a large extent, like DeFi is the round hole that the square peg is trying to jam itself into, right? Like these sort of frameworks for regulatory applications don't necessarily apply when there isn't actually a centralized intermediary that's brokering a lot of these transactions. So if the WEF and Sheila Warren, who's been doing a lot of great work on the blockchain front, can push this conversation forward, please, I wish her well. It's something that I think needs to happen, and I think that if they're willing to take the lead on this, more power to them. Someone needs to do that and to educate that, hey, these are kind of different frameworks, and we need to approach them with a new set of sort of regulatory heuristics. I'll toss this to Ben. I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is like kind of just, I'm thinking about this right now, and I've been reporting on like privacy and DeFi more generally overall over the last few months. And I just think that this is almost presenting like a greater set of questions than like crypto writ large, because it's such a international, such a complex mechanism of like, money Legos in some ways. And I think it's just the regulations that exist are so ill suited to deal with it that, Zach, to your point, I think there needs to be like a wholesale reimagining and reexamining of like how you might be able to, engage in KYC and AML and all these other things in the realm of DeFi, because it gets so complex so quickly, and it is so like international in the sense that no one entity can really regulate it, that I think this is an interesting starting point. It's definitely not the last point, but like getting the contours of this conversation, and I think the framing of it correct is going to be really, really key going forward, because it's not going anywhere. It's only going to expand. And that tech is like improving quickly. It is being iterated upon quite fast, much faster, I think, than any sort of corresponding regulations.
Nate, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, Jen, one of the things is that like reading this story, there's a lot of mention about like sandboxes and kind of studying DeFi. I've yet to really see like governments broadly like consider like kind of putting funds into like researching DeFi, like putting postdocs on it and that sort of thing. They've certainly done that as it relates to like Bitcoin, but in like studying how Bitcoin could hurt the dominance of the dollar or something like that. That's usually where you'll see like the U.S. government put money towards that. But I'm curious to see that if in the future they see DeFi as something that can revolutionize like each financial system, make it more efficient, make it cheaper, and make it easier and more transparent.
I just wanted to add to something that Ben was saying about the pace of iteration in this industry, because they're putting out this white paper, and this is meant to be a toolkit to guide them in all areas of DeFi. And what are they going to do, a new white paper every day? Because that's how fast this,
I was thinking the same thing.
Like, what good is a toolkit that is even 6 months out of date? We have such incredible pace of innovation in this space. Like, we've got new platforms every other day, new concepts. We have decentralization being applied to trust and governments and all these kind of things that kind of converge in this DeFi world. And so I just don't see how this toolkit is going to be useful one iota. Like, it just doesn't make any sense how this is going to be a good tool. It just seems like it's going to be a way for them to say, well, this is a toolkit, we're following the rules, this is correct, and just kind of give them more confidence in what they're doing. But I think it's going to hurt more than help, because this space is so fast evolving.
But do you not think it's a good starting point? Like, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say the flip side of that, and this is maybe a little bit of my like philosophy overall when it comes to tech, is like, we could move a little slower. That could be okay. Like, we see faulty tech result in like people losing millions of dollars. We see rug pulls. We see other things. I mean, this is the whole reason why like Uniswap is like licensing its code base now after SushiSwap like forked it and cloned it, and we see all these other platforms popping up. So, overall, writ large, I think that tech generally could take a lesson and just say like, let's go slower, let's not move fast, and let's break less things. So maybe Naomi, that's a different way to approach it. But Jen, what were you going to say?
Well, are you saying that tech should move slower, or the regulators should move slower?
I think tech just generally. I think there's a conflict between regulators, which are naturally conservative and do move slowly because they do want to like look at white papers. They want to look at these other things. I also think that sometimes different crypto projects can get a little bit over their skis in that regard, and we see kind of the consequences of this like cascade out time and time and time again. And so I think that's maybe a different conversation from this one, but I do think one that's going to be important going forward, certainly.
Oh, I love how fast the tech space moves.
Me too. Me too. Don't slow down.
All right, on to the next thing. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to slow down for just a minute. We're going to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to go to El Salvador. That was the big news out of Miami this weekend. We're going to talk about some of the implications of El Salvador proposing a bill to make Bitcoin legal tender in that country and some of the follow-on ramifications. So stick with us. It's The Hash. It's Tuesday. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, folks. So up next, we had a little bit of a further details on El Salvador's announcement about Bitcoin becoming legal tender in the country. So Bitcoin will not replace the US dollar in El Salvador, the country's Secretary of Commerce and Investment, Miguel Catton, said on Monday. So he was responding to Salvadorans who were confused about the new announcement from President Nayib Bukele that Bitcoin would become legal tender in the country. And a report out in Reuters Monday afternoon noted that the announcement could complicate a $1 billion program with the International Monetary Fund, with some analysts saying that the move could signal a lack of coordination with the IMF. The move also could make tax evasion and money laundering in the country easier, some analysts said. So this is something where Catton is coming back and he's explaining that goods will remain dollar denominated in El Salvador. So each good would be sold based on its dollar price, even if the consumer is paying with Bitcoin, kind of reassuring both citizens and the world, IMF at large, that the dollar will still reign supreme in El Salvador. So I want to throw it to the group. is Bitcoin not yet ready for its debut as a currency, or is this a good thing for Bitcoin that it shouldn't be a country's currency yet, or is this a sad move for like Bitcoiners who want to see it become the world reserve currency? What do you guys think?
I just want to confirm. So nothing really has happened then in El Salvador. Like the dollar is still. So it was like okay, just confirming.
I think you've been reading too much crypto Twitter, right? The lack of nuance in some of the crypto Twitter boosterism was quite striking, right? It was like, oh my God, Bitcoin is there. Now it's happening. No, what was said was next week I'm going to submit this bill to the legislator that I control through my heavy-handed government. It will likely pass, but this is still a prospective thing. So let's situate the conversation there that it's still a prospective thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Bitcoin in El Salvador, it's a yes and, right? It's not, it's like, you know, dollar and Bitcoin. And in that respect, I think it's a great thing, right? It's a yes and for the people of El Salvador to be able to have that as a means of exchange when it comes to taxes or any other items that they're able to purchase. So the fact that this clarity was provided by this minister, I think, is useful in the yes and department. Really going to be interesting to see what it means for folks on the ground. There's still a lot of lingering questions. I know we're doing a lot of reporting to get to the bottom of these questions, but yes and seems to make a ton of sense to me. The native currency of the country is being sort of like supplemented by Bitcoin as an equal alternative currency. So I'll toss it to Naomi on that.
Yeah, I don't want us to undersell the news. Like, it's not a nothing statement. Adding this as legal tender is a huge deal, and it is likely to go through. So this is a big move. I think that the clarity is helpful for the people of El Salvador, because a lot of them are like, I can't afford $30,000 for a Bitcoin. And so just kind of getting education out there about like, oh, well, you can actually divide it to the 8th decimal place. And all of that is super important and helpful. I will just say with the IMF stuff, like, oh God, that stuff makes me so angry. When they say like, well, this might jeopardize the program, like the IMF uses that as a leverage point for so many places. Back in, I think it was 2018, Marshall Islands starts looking into adding a cryptocurrency as their national currency and getting rid of the US dollar. And the IMF came in and said, you could do that, but, you may not get as many perks as you used to. You may not get as much help as you used to. It may jeopardize the money coming into the Marshall Islands. And so the IMF has often kind of used that money and that kind of, greasy palm mentality to make sure that governments around the world toe the line. So it kind of bothers me. And also bothers me this rhetoric around like, oh, well, tax evasion. Guys, like 70% of El Salvadorians don't have a bank account. They're using cash. Which is easier to avoid taxes, Bitcoin or cash? Like, I just think it's such a ridiculous statement that they're clearly just, creating a bunch of fun at this stage. But Nate, I'll throw it back to you.
I agree, Naomi. It's something where the president has removed capital gains tax for Bitcoin, which means that Bitcoin as a form of payment at this point avoids the same kind of transaction fees that you would get with card and the dollar. One point that's kind of helpful here is to understand why the IMF had where El Salvador is at. As an emerging market. One thing to help there is this concept in international economics called the impossible trinity, in which you can only have 2 out of 3 of the following things in a country at the same time. You can only have a fixed exchange rate, free capital movement, meaning like no capital controls like tariffs or special taxes on foreign investment, and an independent monetary policy, so getting to set your own interest rates. So El Salvador runs on the US dollar. They gave up their independent monetary policy so they could have a fixed foreign exchange rate and they could have free trade. So they can't really do the same kind of like money printing that the US can to like spend its way out of recessions. And that's it's something to they're also kind of they're at the mercy of a lot of foreign investors for economic boosts. So it'll be interesting to see as to whether or not these the crypto kind of investors that come in, how much they stimulate El Salvador's economy, and whether or not they'll still get that $1 billion from the IMF.
Interesting, for sure. Well, let's change track here. I want to actually move to Amazon. So, interesting job posting that has been added. There was a job ad posted for blockchain head of product. So apparently Amazon is searching for staff with experience in decentralized finance. The ad states the candidate will have a track record delivering outstanding products at scale in emerging spaces, is passionate about blockchain, distributed systems, cloud, scale software. Ideally, you will have experience delivering products or innovations in the blockchain space, and in particular, DeFi or traditional financial services. It's very interesting that they're posting that. What do you think is on the cards there? I'm going to throw this to Zack.
What do I think is in the cards? Wasn't there something about how like every tech company wants to become a bank? Maybe like tech companies are thinking about like this is the way that they become banks, right? So these are these mainstream portals to these, weird DeFi protocols. I think the one that stands out to me is that Maps.me thing that we talked about a while ago. Sam Bankman-Fried invested a bunch of money in a consumer-facing offline mapping app that has nothing to do with finance, but it could be a mainstream gateway to these DeFi protocols, in this case on Solana, right? You can just have a wallet in your Maps app. You can have a wallet in your Amazon. You can have a wallet in your Uber. And maybe the way that the people are thinking about this now in sort of Silicon Valley is, instead of jumping through all the hoops and getting all these banking regulations, what if we were able to build atop these DeFi protocols? What if we were able to contribute a couple Lego blocks to this composability space? So the fact that some Amazon hiring manager is thinking about that, that's quite interesting to me. It's quite interesting to me that they could be thinking of themselves as, again, one of these mainstream gateways to decentralized finance protocols that give users bank-like functions within the comfort of whatever that mainstream app may do that's not related to bank-like stuff. So hey, maybe we'll see more of it. But yeah, for Amazon to stick this in there, kind of interesting.
Zach, I thought the tech joke was that every tech company likes to be its own self-sovereign state, not just a bank.
Is that next? I missed that.
No, but I think this is interesting. We've seen Amazon kind of playing in this space for a bit now in a variety of different instances. And I think this kind of goes back to our previous conversation about the white paper that you brought up, Jen, is like, this is how quickly this is moving. And I think that, companies are looking at this. Companies are looking to be those on-ramps, and Amazon just plays in every single space it possibly can, between like Amazon Prime Video and like AWS and like Whole Foods and all this other stuff. Like, they just look at markets where they can get a huge footprint and then dive into it kind of just wholesale. So, the fact that they're doing this isn't necessarily surprising. The pace at which this is happening in terms of, mainstream companies, including some of the largest tech firms in the US, like looking at wanting to get some experience in around DeFi, I think is really important and kind of points at like how they see that trajectory going forward. But again, like, the pace at which this is happening is why there's all this regulation that needs to either A, catch up, or we got to figure out a different thing. Because, once Amazon dives into this, they've got a customer base that is willing and able to like trust them and do one-click kind of access to all of this stuff. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how it goes moving forward.
I think that the speculation around this is that they're going to be building a digital payment token, which will be interesting. I mean, Starbucks has Starbucks points, and, Amazon has like credits that they send out to people anyway. If they were to create a digital currency, that would be very interesting, especially if this was something you could potentially earn yield on. Maybe they register it as a security. Maybe you can like have percentage of Amazon. Like, there's so much potential here. It's kind of interesting. And I agree, Ben, it doesn't surprise me that they're diving in.
There's, just off the back of what everyone has said so far, tech companies are getting into the space to not jump through the loopholes of regulation, but I think there are going to be even more loopholes of regulation around this because the regulators don't know what's going on. And so I'm really interested to see what's going to happen moving forward as all of these big tech companies start experimenting with DeFi.
Bezos bucks. What if, think about it this way. What if Libra was conceived as a DeFi project? I keep going back to this thing. I forget who it was. Naomi, who was it with the throat to choke imagery?
Oh yeah. I can't remember who said that, but yeah.
Yeah, I keep going back to that imagery, right? So maybe the idea is, hey, Libra was like 1.0 of what corporate coin could be, and now maybe they're thinking, oh, okay, well, if we make this in a decentralized fashion, that could be Libra 2.0. It'd be interesting to see what the conversation follows from that. But yeah, Ben, what do you got?
No, I was just thinking about this, and also in relation to like El Salvador and Bitcoin. It's like we live in a society. Like these things are not just going to happen all at one speed or all at another. Like, kind of regulators and El Salvador and like Bitcoin, all these things have to interact with like the IMF and all these existing structures. Like they don't exist independently of each other. And so, as we see the corporate world, maybe the suits, right, come to crypto, I think this is definitely something we're going to have to consider. But again, I was thinking about this in relation to El Salvador. Like all this clarity is good, but like nothing is binary, right? These things aren't going to flip on or flip off all at once. And so when considering these questions, everybody's going to have their fingers in the cookie jar in some ways. And so we have to navigate that over a period of time. And so those are the conversations I think that are going to have to continue to happen.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. We will pick it back up tomorrow for more conversation about the latest in crypto news and culture. Thanks so much for tuning into The Hash today. It's Tuesday, June 8th. It's been fun. Stick around, CoinDesk TV, 3 p.m. Eastern, all about Bitcoin, and then First Mover tomorrow morning, and then us again. It's going to be nice. All right, thanks, Naomi. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Ben. Great to see you, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.